Cloak Dagger Season 2. This is the spoiler review. I have a review up on my blog, soundedbettermyhead.com. There's a couple spoilers on there, but for the most part, I try not to reveal too much on there. I am going and giving this season a 2.5 out of 5. I don't think it was a bad season. It just didn't really do much for me. I think one good sign is that after every episode, there really wasn't any point where I was like, man, I can't wait to see what happens next week. There wasn't that I gotta come back and see what happens next, which I think is a sign of a good show. Now, I was definitely curious to see how certain things would happen. I was definitely interested in the show in general, but it wasn't like I gotta see what happens next. I thought some of the stuff they set up early on was pretty strong, but I thought the payoff wasn't as great, which I think is where it really lost some steam in my opinion as far as giving a better rating. But overall, what I do like about the Cloak and Dagger series is that it's a little bit like the Netflix series where it gets pretty deep into social issues. Last season you had a lot of stuff about being black and a teenager trying to grow up in America, and this season you get into this sex trafficking rings and human trafficking, and they don't just sugarcoat this stuff. They lay it down and legit. I think that's where it kind of struggles a little bit because the show's so grounded. Like I said, it's like the Netflix show. It's pretty grounded, but the superhero stuff there is not as fantastic for the most part. That's why I think when it is, it doesn't always work. Like when you got ninjas that come back from the dead, like the Hand showing up in Daredevil, it kind of loses a little something from this guy that just has really good senses and he's beating people up because of his powers. And when you go to Cloak and Dagger, their powers are so much more. You got the light daggers, you got the teleporting, you got the dark dimension. And when you got that much reality, it's a little bit more, it's not as smooth of a transition as it could be. The show really leans pretty heavy this season into the voodoo stuff, which, again, we already know in the MCU that there is magic. And you could cast spells, you do whatever. So it's not really that far-fetched that voodoo works, but for number one, the voodoo is so kind of out there. I don't think a lot of people understand a lot of the stuff that they're talking about. I don't think the average person doesn't understand how their gods and all their stuff works and how their magic works. And again, with the show generally being really down to earth, it always seems a little jarring when they do a symbol on the ground and it let someone do something different, like letting Cloak control his teleporting a little better. And the other strangest thing this season, if you read the comics, you know that Cloak, when you go inside there, it's a dark dimension, the Dark Force dimension. And we finally get to see inside there after Connors got sucked in there at the end of season 1. And it's a little disappointing because it's apparently the first thing you see when you get there is an old gas station, and then with a little magic you could go to some abandoned mall and wander around. There's a couple mirrors you gotta get past sometimes, and I don't know why there's an abandoned mall and an old gas station in this other world. I'm assuming they're all not real. It's just a representation of something else, but I don't know. It's just so kind of out there. You got the few voodoo gods that kind of hang out there, which is a little weird. For whatever reason, maybe because he's linked because of being hit by the energy blast from the rig explosion, but Andre could basically send his consciousness there at any point, and then you get the thing where he collects Despair and makes them his records and plays them, which it was kind of cool at first, but I think they kind of overdo it. They're constantly having him break out a new record. It does different things, and this is just kind of weird because he's doing it here and then it starts affecting stuff in the real world. And I don't know. I just thought it grew a little tired after a while. As far as Andre himself, again, it was a good reveal. You thought he was this helpful guy, and it turns out he's actually the bad guy. So it was a good twist. As you know, you might not know, but he's loosely based on the Despair character from the comics, which is closely associated with Cloak and Dagger. So the fact that he's potentially could become a god actually works in his favor because Despair is more or less like a dark god. So I thought that worked well. Even the fact that he needed his hit his blue note with his horn to ascend, I think made sense. But once he got there, it really wasn't that impressive. He just basically had a bunch of people sitting around in this dark dimension, chilling and listening to play his horn. And then when Tandy and Tyrone come after him, he just kind of puts them in stupid confrontations with their fears, which is basically her dad and a perfect version of Ty, which it seemed like we just seen them face their demons so many times. Really the last 2 seasons. And then they get close, and he would just blow his horn really hard, and they get sent off to the side. And I don't know, he just didn't really impress me as when he finally achieved godhood. And it seemed like he was taken out kind of easy when it was all said and done. And I wish they maybe would have explained better that her daggers could really hurt him. Instead of previously they just kind of wouldn't do anything until she got the big sword. A pretty solid overall story arc for Ty and Tandy. As always, they butt heads and they have their moments for not getting it wrong. But as it goes on, they do so much better at supporting each other and trying to build them up and letting them see that you're not worthless or you're not a failure. I think that worked well for them. I thought the use of their powers continue to expand. Tandy started using kind of like the light bombs. Tyrone was actually, I said, he was able to send people into the cloak. This effect looked a little bit cooler. They were showing a little bit more of that smoke effect. He was just getting better and better at teleporting and using that to, beat the bad guys. I like it basically ends with them heading off to become essentially superheroes, or at least heroes. So it's pretty close to their comic book counterparts, but still grounded enough that it's not. I think the season still kind of hinted at it before, but there's too much kind of metaphysical stuff happening a lot. Always, you got to beat something in your mind, or you lose this fight in your mind. There's not a lot of physical threats this season, and I think it gets a little repetitive, especially like I said, the final episode. And I think I would have liked to see him maybe drag Dispirited to the real world, and he would have been powerful still. But that's just one possibility. Another thing that was kind of disappointing was the whole Mayhem storyline. They really hyped up going into season 2 that Mayhem's coming. Mayhem. And we get her, and we see one slaughter off camera where she's a badass. Then we get the interesting twist where there's actually Mayhem and there's Bridget, they're 2 separate characters. And it kind of started losing its way there. You get Bridget being kind of wishy-washy, and Mayhem are not trying to kill people, but getting the job done. And then she gets taken out of the picture for a long time when she's stuck in the dark dimension. And then when we do finally get them integrated to one being, it really wasn't that impressive. She had that edge, but she didn't seem to have that ability to take out a room of bad guys though, unarmed, while they got guns and stuff. And I thought that was a little disappointing. I thought they would have did a little bit more, where once she became one thing, she actually would have been a badass, the ultimate badass. I don't think I got a ton else to say about the show overall. Let me go through my notes and see if anything else is worth mentioning. I think they were a little too vague early on about what was happening about the human trafficking to really get you okay, this is the threat, this is what they got to stop. It's just one of her friends gets kidnapped, and there's reports of all the girls missing in these ambulances, but it's not quite enough to really get you hooked yet. I mean, I know you got to kind of set this up slowly, but it wasn't enough to really say, okay, especially because her friend, she wasn't even really her friend. She tried to help her out. They almost didn't even seem to like each other, so you weren't that as worried about her well-being. Interesting twist with Connors, basically finally shows up again. He's basically redeemed himself, and he wants to help help clear Ty, which led to a really weird plot thing where Ty goes to get goes to elaborate steps to get these papers that would clear him basically, and then there's nothing there, and they really never explain why this guy moved this stuff. And then it just basically leads him to taking Connors to his mom, who finds out where the real body is for her other son, Billy, and then kind of shockingly, she just executes him, which is pretty crazy. It's definitely a pretty big line to cross, but they really don't touch it again at the end. At the end, she's just kind of chilling with her husband, and everything's all great. And we never got to see what happened about finding Billy's real body or any of that. it was a decent episode where they started off with Tandy going through like initially like a perfect life and different variants of like what her life could have been. Again, like, there's just so many head trippy things that happen in the show, especially this season. It's like can't enjoy it as much. You know, this is not as original, but you know there was some interesting twists on her life story and how important Ty was to her. I think I initially fell for it when I thought they looked like she escaped until he shot Ty, and then I'm like, okay, you know it's fake again. Some of the sex trafficking stuff, like I said, got pretty deep. I mean, they initially really don't blatantly say that they're using these girls as prostitutes until there's a pretty creepy sequence where they drug Tandy, dress her up all pretty, and then leave her kind of half immobilized. Some John walks in, he's basically about to like make a move on her. I don't even know that John knows that these girls are kind of against their will, or it doesn't matter, to be honest. But it was, you know, it's creepy. It's kind of scary that this could have went through. Luckily, at the last minute, she was able to break free. But like I said, they get pretty dark with some of their story points. Fun little sequence where they're playing the Despair video game. I thought it would have been like a good chance to, at least the 8-bit version of them, to have their classic, you know, costumes from the book. But, you know, they didn't do it that way, which is fine. They end the final episode, we do see Cloak, at least with the cool cloak again, and Dagger basically just wearing all white. It really just looked like a ballerina outfit without the tutu, but at least you kind of what you expect to see when you see those two together. They got pretty dark with Tandy again, where it looked like she was ready to become a murderer, and then luckily she, you know, came to her senses and didn't cross that line. Always fun when there's shout-outs to the other shows. We get a big Luke Cage shout-out, and then we see an actual newspaper where you see a glimpse of Luke Cage. Can't see it clear enough to see if it's actually from the television show or it's just another guy in a hoodie. But it's, you know, always fun to see that. Just letting you know these shows are still connected. And this finale, there's that odd scene where like Mayhem was fighting these random SWAT team cops that are not really cops, and there's, I don't know, something that Despair somehow sent out to the real world, and one happens to look like Fuchs, and then somehow she just blows them up and protects herself by putting the thing over her head. And it was just, it was kind of a weird sequence. Could have been better. Almost, like I said, I think I almost rather seen at some point Cloak and Dagger fighting these characters too, like having the battle in the real world and in the you know, the dark dimension. Like I said, they got pretty dark again. This is Tammy's dad's like attacking, you know, a young female. This guy is, you know, big guy, kind of a big guy, and he's, you know, swinging on her, throwing her around. It's pretty vicious, a little bit dark. The overall end was a tiny bit anticlimactic. Just, I don't know, somehow Bridget gets Connor's body. I don't know who told her where it was at. She strings him up in the shooting range and everything's fine because, I don't know, cops didn't like him, so everything's cool. And like I said, the mom and dad are back together like nothing went wrong. Presumably, it looked like Despair's human body died when he became a god. I'm assuming that they either killed him as a god or, you know, he's trapped in some kind of a loop and it doesn't really matter and he's not a threat. It's just a tiny bit vague. I don't think I needed any more resolution, but like I said, I didn't have a ton to say about this season. I just thought it was just a little bit disappointing. I thought it started off kind of strong. I thought they had some good, you know, good plot points that if they executed them properly, it would have been, you know, really solid season. And I thought they fumbled it a little bit, but that's all I got. So thanks for watching.